Holbrook New Media.
This is Jeffrey K. Holbrook. Welcome to the audio feed from HolbrookNewMedia.com. Most of the audience knows that my house was broken into here some time back, and so we're having to do some repairs and do some things like that. Well, my brother Doug actually helped me move some materials from the home store over here to the house, and I really appreciate that. And since Jeff is not available to do the weekly catch-up today, Doug has consented to be a guest co-host for the show. And so what seemed completely appropriate to talk about was security issues around the home. I've been living here for 23 years, and we've never really had any problems before. And I know that times have changed, but at the same time, just never occurred to us that we might need some security, not only security equipment, but possibly change things about the way you live, possibly some minor details you may want to change. But anyway, my brother Doug, again, is here with me, and he definitely has some ideas on that, and he's taken some different steps than what I have, and hopefully he won't find somebody sleeping in his bed next week. That's not supposed to be there anyway. So anyway, Doug, welcome.
Thank you.
Okay. We haven't had this conversation off of the show, so we just want to do this fresh. And why don't you tell me what you were thinking about security concerns? Because I've had absolutely none up to this point.
Well, being raised in the same household as you, our father was rather security conscious. I mean, he didn't go with security systems and all that. But, I mean, he raised us. We didn't leave the house without locking the doors. It blows my mind, the people I've met that will leave their house and leave a door unlocked, sometimes standing open. I don't understand that mindset. And just about everything I do it's not like I'm paranoid, but I just try to use common sense when it comes to security.
It's something I guess you would develop as a habit. You know,
whenever
you get out of a car, you just lock it, check, see if you got your keys,
right,
and lock the door. You don't. It's not like you're saying, "Oh, I have a security checklist when I get out of my car." No, just get in the habit.
Right.
Okay.
But I mean, to a certain extent, there can be not a checklist on physical checklist, but there's things in my mind that I will not allow to happen when I get out of a car. Mm-hmm. That's an example. You never leave anything valuable visible.
Right.
Period. And you lock the doors.
That's a smash and grab thing.
Several years ago, church we went to at the time, we had I think it was either Easter Sunday or some special event where there were a lot of visitors. And it had been advertised. And I think that made it more of a target because there was more cars there and harder to watch everything. And a visitor, as it just so happened, had their car broken into during church. Well,
that's always sad.
Okay, here's why. They had left a set of keys in the console. Now, none of the keys fit that vehicle.
But who knew?
But that was the catalyst. Okay. Usually, people trying to break into cars, especially when it's an event like that, will try door handles and look for something unlocked. Or they'll look for something valuable in the car. They saw the keys thinking, hey, we can take the whole car. I mean, this is my theory on what happened. Because the keys ended up in the floorboard.
Right. So I
think they went through the keys, tried several of them or whatever, looked for car keys, didn't find them. And what ended up happening was the guy had also left his wallet over the visor. Now, it wasn't visible. I mean, he says.
But once you're in the car.
They start looking for anything else because they've already got this far, and they pulled down the visor, made off the guy's wallet and everything. We're talking possible identity theft. All kinds of stuff can happen from that.
Well, the standard thing is whenever you look in a car, a lot of people will put their keys over the visor thinking they can't be seen. That's the first place somebody's going to look.
Yep, that and under the mat.
Pull the visors and see what falls. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
So, it's if they had not left those keys, even though they don't fit the vehicle, just the thought of, can leaving this here be enticing to anyone? And if it can, don't do it.
Yeah.
I mean, we're talking stuff that stays in a car all the time, even GPS devices. I mean, there's a lot of people get their cars broken into and they just grab the GPS and run.
Well, I honestly, those little suction cup circles on the glass
Yeah.
on the windshield and say, oh, yeah, they've been putting something there.
Mm-hmm.
And then they figure it's down in the car somewhere. And, that's enough to make them break in.
Now you can do like I do and use a really old one. One that's way out of date that I don't even update the maps on. The only thing I use it for is to track my travel time, in my work vehicle. So I reset it every time I'm leaving one point to go to another point so I can track my travel time. And I actually use my cell phone for my actual navigation.
So. Yeah, the navigation on the cell phone is something that it's really funny. In the 80s, whenever I was a hobbyist programmer and stuff, you and I did programming together and had a whole lot of fun back in the good old days. But what was funny was I was the computer guy. Well, my wife Dee Dee, has since gotten all kinds of different little electronic devices. I think she has more than I do now. And she's the one that showed me the navigation on a regular phone or a tablet. I mean, I'm just like, well, isn't that cool? Because I was assuming we needed to get a GPS. She just pulls out a tablet and starts navigating. And I'm like, goodness. I mean, I had not kept up with that side of things.
Right.
Hadn't paid any attention to it. I've been too busy podcasting. I wasn't paying attention to GPS. And I just now got a new phone. From 2009 was the last time I got a phone. So anyway, and now the things that it'll do, I'm still just really thrilled and stuff with that. But having your phone on you and then having something visible in the car, that's two completely different things. Like you were talking about the visibility of things. I mean, I guess bags of groceries, or not groceries, but okay, what if they look in there and they see the bag is from more of an exclusive store as opposed to Walmart?
Shopping bags, anything like that can be a draw. I mean, especially around Christmas time is when they notice those things.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I guess they want to steal gifts for their family.
Right.
It must be some kind of a thing.
Santa Claus has been good this year.
Oh yeah. Unfortunately, we had to steal all the stuff from the other people he gave it to, but still.
Right. So it's just simple stuff like that I don't know if people just don't. Maybe they weren't raised with that kind of security mindset of thinking. I mean, I remember growing up, Dad would always be, suggesting things. I mean, and that's what I find myself doing with my wife and daughter is, if we're getting out of the car, I'll glance in the car real quick just to see if there's anything, hey, let's put that under the seat, or let's make sure that's not visible or something like that. And, who knows how many times it's protected us, or maybe it hasn't at all. I mean, we haven't been broken into, but maybe no one's ever looked in there either. Maybe we've been lucky that way. I don't know. But it's just something, why open the door? I mean, that's just the way I look at it.
No, I agree with you there. I mean, and again, there are a certain number of random things that might happen. But on a parking lot with 50 or 60 or 100 cars, why did they pick your car?
Right.
For that exact reason. They scan them. They just go walking across the parking lot, kind of looking to see what's there. Oh, there's something that triggers them to actually look closer to your car. Okay. And what's the thing is, we think that this is a new phenomenon, where people now have things in the cars that are, more valuable. They're small, easy to carry around, stuff like that. I remember before you were born, I'm 7 years older than you are. So before you were born, Daddy had a toolbox with a bunch of his tools stowed out of his car while we were in church.
Right.
I mean, we were just little kids, and people used to target churches. Even then, they would look for groups of cars. And they also think that back then, I guess it was thought, and even today, they think sometimes that Christians are, kind of naive, easygoing, easy targets. Yeah, just kind of, simple, soft people, that we can just take stuff from, and they won't even report it because, after all, they're Christians. Right. Serious. I've heard stuff like that. I hear it at work. Somebody say, well, he shouldn't say that. Isn't he supposed to be a Christian? You say, well, why should he, be held any more accountable than any person in the world? Shouldn't everyone behave?
Right.
Yeah. And they're like, yeah. Shouldn't everyone behave?
Exactly.
But if you're not, all you have to do is say you're not a Christian. You can do anything you want. No, that isn't the way it should be.
So that means you're not?
Oh, ooh, okay. But, okay. So as far as the car and stuff goes, no, I totally see that. And then I think the rural mindset compared to the city mindset. In the city, you're used to protecting yourself because your front door, there was 200 people that walked by it in the last hour.
Right.
And so in the rural area, like for me, this guy broke into our house. There's no foot traffic within a mile of my house.
Right.
So the idea that somebody would just walk, there was no car out there. My big mistake, and I've readily admitted this, is walking in, not realizing there was somebody in the house.
Right. You didn't make sure there was somebody in the house before you started the video.
Because the rules that I've lived by for 23 years here is that, there's no foot traffic within a mile of the place. No one ever just walks up to the house.
Right.
There's a car. Well, there was no car. The car was gone. It was missing. The doors were open. The place was trashed, wide open. Everything was torn up, and then they had left.
Right.
Well, see, that was the mistake that I made, thinking that there was nobody in the house, but all the indications to me were that there was no one here.
Right.
Now, if somebody had been waiting for me, that could have been really bad. But I think the rural mindset, where you have a tendency to trust your neighbors, and you have which again, I do. I trust my neighbors. I know my neighbors. I mean, some of them turned out looking for the cat, scouring the woods looking for the cat, because the guy let the cat out and the cat was scared and gone.
Right.
And yeah, you do appreciate your neighbors, but there are strangers that are within, distance of your house that could just come in and do something. And while we lived here for 23 years, it's easy to get lulled into a false sense of the world can't touch us out here.
Right. Right.
Whereas in the city, the apartment down the street got broken into this week. The week before, 2 blocks down, someone got shot on the street. And then,
Right.
So we're not used to that whole concept. We think we're safe out here.
Right. Well, I think, and that's kind of the way that our father raised us. I mean, he raised us almost with the city mentality in the country.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that's the way I think about it. And because I think about it this way, when you're that secluded, there's also no one else around to witness anything. So in a way, it can, in some types of thinking, it could make you more of a target. Well, because I don't have to worry about anybody else walking by and finding me doing it.
Well, that's true. This guy here had hours. He was throwing firewood through doors, through glass sliding doors and the French doors. He spent time throwing things, hitting the sheetrock on either side of the stained glass windows, and just had a good time and drank all my Kool-Aid, and then went upstairs and got in my bed. So, just kind of like, it was kind of like, well, he had all the time in the world. I mean, he was probably here for hours.
I've just been thinking it's a good thing he didn't break into Jim Jones' house, drinking the Kool-Aid.
It would have been the absolute worst house to break into and drink the Kool-Aid. I hadn't thought about that. But the thing is, though, all he was looking for was pills. So, there's nothing else that they were broken. Things were broken. Things were torn up. He had a bit of a rage at some point, and started just tearing up and breaking things. But maybe it was because it was a dry county. There wasn't any alcohol or any fancy drugs or anything available when he broke in. So he picked a wrong house this time. So what could people do out in the country to, now my doors were locked. This was actually a random thing. He picked my house maybe because it seemed no one was around. Maybe that's why my house was picked. It was isolated. No one was around. What can you do you think, to other than obviously have handguns available for, home protection, which I did have, and I chose not to use simply because the guy was asleep. The guy was asleep. Right. What kind of news is that if the homeowner doesn't shoot somebody, or if the police doesn't come in and tase him and throw him off the balcony? That's what kind of news is that? They want sensationalism, so. Right. But I mean, what can you do as far as home security? Like right now, we didn't have a security system. The videoing happened. I did it live, so it wasn't like I had some kind of system doing it. So should everyone go with one of these online monitoring, home security systems, or are there other things you can do to keep somebody else from listening into your home?
Well, I mean, there's all kinds of different security systems out there. There's wireless, there's hardwired, there's camera systems. You can get those in wireless or hardwired. I mean, there's just so many different kinds. I mean, I guess you'd have to take it on a case-by-case basis. I'm by no means a security expert.
You know more than I do, and that's
well,
a fact. You've explored some of it, and I haven't.
Yeah,
it really hasn't been an issue till now for me.
Right. Well, I live in a subdivision, so there's a lot of houses around, and most of my neighbors that know that I have one have asked me why.
Oh,
why do you have that?
See, well, because you're not looking out your window in my house constantly with a shotgun waiting for someone to break in.
Right.
That's why.
Right. And I don't know why, other than I just felt part of it was I have a daughter. Okay. And if she's home by herself, This gives her, what I have is an 8-channel video security system that enables her, if there's a knock on the door, if the dog starts barking, she hears something, she can set in a closet if she wanted to and pull up her cell phone and look at all around the outside of the house and see what's going on.
Okay, now is this monitored, or is this something you
No,
have
this
for
is
yourself?
just.
I mean, it's monitored by you. You can actually,
Right.
if you can do it, she can do it on her cell phone over Wi-Fi. Then you
Right.
could do it if you're in Baltimore,
Right.
wherever else you happen
Right.
to be, or
And
whatever.
there's been times she's called me
Yeah,
while I'm at work,
and then you
when she's been
checked.
home by herself, and I'm like, and a lot of times if she would start calling me, I'm pulling it up while I'm answering it because I have a Bluetooth device. I answer it,
Right.
and then I'll pull up and start looking at it. And she said, "There's somebody out here, whatever they're doing, And I said, and I'll sit there and watch them and talk to her while,
Right.
And it's never been anything. It's just been
Well,
people turning around or whatever.
for 23
but
years,
the
it was
peace of mind.
23 years, it was never
Right.
anything here, but suddenly it was something.
Right.
That one time is
Right.
what these things are for.
And the peace of mind that it gives us, I mean, again, it's not going to automatically notify the police and all this type of stuff. But it will, the cameras are set up for motion sensing. So if it detects motion, when I first set it up, I had it texting me when it would detect motion.
Oh,
it would
wow.
send me a picture of the snapshot of what the motion was.
Oh,
well,
that's fancy.
it got ridiculous.
Yeah, I reckon.
I mean, it's just like going off constantly. It's like I couldn't do anything.
A deer, a squirrel.
Right, exactly. So I ended up having it sent to my email.
Okay.
Now I will just randomly just get a notion and check it from time to time.
Well, yeah, that makes sense.
I mean, just out of the blue. But it sends me a snapshot on my email, and then I go through them. And if there's something I want to look at closer, then I will go back and play that section back. It's a DVR system.
Oh, okay, yeah.
And all that. It's not stored to the cloud, anything like that.
Okay, now
It transmits to the cloud so we can look at it on our cell phones.
So what it does is gives you a still shot, but then you can actually have that section replayed
It's
over your
time-stamped.
phone while you're gone.
Or
do you have to go home to play it?
I don't do that. There might be a way to do that, but I've never really.
Okay, but in any case, you could actually see something suspicious. Maybe
Right.
someone was casing your house,
Right.
and you see them. They're just camera. You see them looking here. They're looking there. They're trying
Right.
to look in the
Right.
windows. Okay, and at that point, you could head off something before it actually happened.
Right.
Possibly. At least you would be
Right.
forewarned is forearmed, I believe the
Never
term
heard that
is.
before, but it's pretty
Yeah.
cool.
Well, no, I mean you're ready.
Right.
Like you say, and the surprise attack doesn't happen, so that's good.
Well, see, it's funny because you basically live in the woods,
Yes, I totally live in the woods.
and because I live in a subdivision, if I look out and stand on my front porch, I can see 3 houses readily. 4 or 5, are within eyesight. I mean, right there, fairly clear vision. But I've got woods on 2 complete sides of me.
Mhm.
And I have always assumed that if anybody was ever going to break into my house, it would be through the woods.
Right.
That's the way I've thought the least likely way to be noticed would be through the woods.
Mhm.
So there's no opening you can get into the house without getting caught on camera. I mean, you can't get into the house without a camera catching you somewhere because of the way I've got it set up.
Very nice.
Now, I do not have any inside the house because
Well,
then you're dealing with internet security.
right.
People
and it's-
hacking in, watching your, and all this stuff. I even worry about, I mean, I'm so security conscious sometimes. I even worry about if someone was to hack into my system and start monitoring, they could, at the very least, know when we're there and when we're not. If they watch us long enough, they can tell how many people live there or have all of them left. Now's the time to launch the attack. I mean, I can't imagine anybody targeting me specifically like that. But at the same time, it is possible. And anything possible could happen.
Yeah. Well,
So
like you
that's
say,
why
because I've had people ask me over these last 23 years, what about just somebody randomly picks your house? Well, they did. And so
I'm not sure they were aware they were randomly picking your house.
Well, I see your point there. But the thing is, you have people who are, okay. I never, in all my podcasting efforts or anything, ever got hit by an internet troll because I'm a small fry, in this whole big pond. I'm a very tiny fish, as a podcaster. It's not like I'm a comedian that got famous or anything like that. Until I had a viral video. It took roughly 3 hours when this video started going viral for the first troll to show up and say, they arrested the wrong fat guy. Somebody else got on there and was talking about, you're a hoarder. the house was trashed. And so it's like,
Give me a break.
No. But I'm thinking until you reach a certain level of notoriety,
Right.
no one wants to bother you. The average middle class house, why would anybody monitor your system and then break in? Because it's not like, they're storing gold bars in that middle class house.
Right.
Probably not.
Right. But
it's the local petty
have you
crime
ever
that you have to
gone
worry
into your router, for example? Some people don't even know how to do this, and I've only done it once or twice. But you can go into your router and you can look at failed attempts to hack into your. It's done by computers. It's a bot. I mean, there's bots out there that are written to just sit there and just poll all these nodes and just try to find anything they can get into. And then when they find it, they may not know what they're into, but they'll go in there and snoop.
Well, like that, my website, the number of malicious attempts blocked.
Right. That's what I'm talking about.
What?
Right.
Because it's like you say, it's all automated, and they just something pops up on their end, just like you have your security cameras coming up on your phone. They just pop up and say, "Oh, hey, we got a live one here," and then they go and look at it and see if it's worth messing with.
Right.
But my website again isn't getting so much traffic that it's worth really messing with, but at the same time, and I'm not famous, and so they don't really have anything big they really need to do to me. It's not like I've got that many followers or anything like that. But at the same time, I'm still being polled by these automated systems, that are trying to break into my system because they're trying all of them.
Right.
Right. That's kind of bad.
Yeah. And because of that kind of stuff, I changed my access password to my security system like about every 2 weeks. I just got it set up in my calendar, in my phone. It reminds me.
And I'll go in and change not it. Your main one for your router. That's
no. That's just access to video.
Okay.
Which that's hardwired. Nothing's wireless, so you can't come in and
right.
Interrupt the system that way with some kind of device that would mess with the wireless signals and all that stuff.
Oh, okay.
I mean, that's for someone a little bit more. If you got a thief that's that. The bottom line is, if somebody wants to get in, they're going to get in. This is just something extra for me. I mean, and if they wanted to break in and steal my whole DVR system and all that, now you ain't got nothing to find them with.
Yeah, that's true.
But it's just one of those things. But it's just something extra that I've done.
Mm-hmm. No, I can understand how, like you say, you may be a target, you may not be a target. Then there's the random things,
right?
That happen. But when it comes down to it, I think I've always felt that probably roughly 20% of the bad things that happen to you in the world are going to happen to you, and there's nothing you can do about it. The other 80% is based on your behavior.
Right.
What did you do that set in motion something that would actually make this happen to you?
I.e., leaving something valuable in the car seat, or leaving your front door open.
I don't even take your garage, or your garage door is open like about a foot.
Right. I have seen that so many times to let the dog in and out.
Right. Yeah.
And I don't even take my dog for a walk. If I leave my house to take my dog for a walk, even if the house is within sight, that door's locked. Mm-hmm. Because all it takes
is somebody to sprint, slide under the door, close it, and you're out.
Right.
You're locked out.
Right. And a lot of times, one of the times that I'll check my security cameras is right after I leave.
Yeah.
I mean, I got them woods. Somebody could be hiding behind a tree. I'll scan the woods before I get in my car. It's just something I do. It's part of being a father and a husband, I think.
Yes, it is a security sweep. It's a security sweep. That's what it is.
Right. And and I've thought about getting the heat sensors and all that stuff. Infrared to be able to see shadows out there. No.
Yeah, and lasers.
But I'm not made of money. All that stuff costs money.
Yeah.
But it's just stuff that I do that I don't know if most people do that. It's just something that's in my nature. It's in the way I was raised. It's just.
Well, and again, one of the things I respect about you is that the fact that you are dedicated to your wife and your daughter, and you want to keep them safe. And so you may be doing more than you would have been doing just if you lived alone. You have a responsibility. Yeah. You have a vow to take care of your family. And so you're doing some extra things that really all of us should do. And that's one of the things that we noticed as soon as you got over here that morning after, you showed up to help me board up the windows and do stuff like that. Then we noticed that the barn door was open down over the hill from the house. I have a barn, and the barn door was open. So the police never saw it in the dark. They didn't know. I didn't tell them, before they left but you and I surmised that evidently it's a good possibility he was waiting in the barn and watching for me to leave.
It's very possible.
Before I went to work. And his shoes were wet. Whenever they picked his shoes up, they were just soaked. But he walked up through the weeds from the barn up to the house, possibly. And So all the scenarios that you just don't think of,
Right.
this stuff happens. Now, do you have any other ideas of any other types of, if a person doesn't have a camera system or anything, maybe that could be added or changed in your routine that might actually give you a little more security around the house? What we have here, isolation wise, and again, like you said, it's different for you and for me because of where we live. We have about 4 houses on almost 100 acres,
Mhm.
and I can't directly line of sight see any of them when the leaves are on. After the leaves are off, I can see a couple of them, but again, a lot of people, rural areas, you're going to find people like handguns for personal protection in case there is a specific confrontation.
Right.
And I will be the first to admit we do have handguns, and I could have resorted to the use of a handgun in this situation, but it made no sense to force a confrontation.
Right.
And I know I've had several people tell me, "Oh yeah, I'd have totally blown him away," or like, "Oh yeah, I was mad because you broke into my house. What were you being so calm about?" Yeah. I mean, whenever I come in, my house is trashed and everything like that.
If you shot the guy while he was asleep, you'd probably be on trial for murder.
Entirely possible. Yeah.
I mean, as much as I would disagree with that, I wouldn't. But I wouldn't have. I would have done something similar. I may have been slightly different, but I wouldn't have attempted to wake the guy. I wouldn't have shot him asleep. I mean, I wouldn't have done that. I mean, that's just.
Well, no, okay. The whole concept of a gun owner as raving maniac hunting people.
That's what some people would have you believe.
Right. I mean, that concept that's one of the things I noticed. It's always easy to want to ban something that you don't have any use for. For instance, so many kids drown in swimming pools every year. Okay. So many of them. I mean, there's all kinds of that drown in swimming pools. The people who a lot of times don't like guns, a lot of them are kind of high-end rich people that have swimming pools. And since they give intelligence and maliciousness to handguns as objects, the fact that they go kill people, why can't we assign that same maliciousness to a swimming pool that is trying to entice children? Come over here so I can drown you.
Right. Exactly.
I mean, it's it's a tool.
Right.
A gun is a tool. It needs to be used judiciously. And the thing is, if you have not been trained from birth like we were, this is a gun. This is what a gun does. This is the dangers using this tool. You can kill people with hammers.
Right.
You need to be careful how you use a hammer. It's a very violent thing. So, you can throw a hammer and kill somebody at a distance if you're
or
not.
knock their teeth out.
Yeah. I forgot completely about that. Goodness, yeah. He is referring to a complete thing whenever he was probably 3, maybe. There was a hammer that I had standing up the top of a hill. And
I think it actually just busted my lip.
Well, it busted your lip, and actually, you had some trouble with your front teeth already. You'd hit your teeth on that sink, and then they were kind of cracked anyway, I think. But anyway, what happened was, it seems like every time something happened to his front teeth, and they eventually were knocked out early, and I was always in the area whenever that happened, and usually somehow I could be blamed for it. But anyway, there was a hammer that I had, and I was going to pitch it down the hill. And I told him, "Look out, I'm getting ready to throw this." And I tried to pitch it away from him. It bounced right back and hit him.
Away. I mean, I remember moving over several feet. I don't know how far away.
And we did everything. And I pitched it kind of away from him, and it bounced straight back like a check mark and went right and hit him right in the mouth. And so,
and of course, I go crying, "Jeff hit me in the mouth."
Well, no, I don't think you specifically blame me. I think you were just in a whole
lot of pain.
I
don't remember much after that.
Yeah, I've tried to forget, but I can't. But anyway, there was, so all these things are dangerous if you're not careful in how you do it. I should have held onto the hammer and carried it down the hill, not thrown it down the hill. Of course, I was 10 or 11 or so at that point. And, I know better now, but that was a very dangerous thing that I was not responsible. There are people who are not responsible with guns. Yeah. However, the gun owners are not hunting people.
Right.
I mean, there are many people who believe they are, but they're not just running around hunting people.
Well, the argument that they say is, guns are made for one thing and one thing only.
Oh,
that's what they try to say.
Okay. So protecting my wife to keep somebody from hurting.
No, they say it's designed to kill people.
Oh, okay.
And they don't even say animals. They just say they're designed to kill.
Or the target.
That's their argument. But,
sure.
it's still an inanimate object laying there. And
Okay,
until a person picks it up with a motive to do anything with it, it's
Sure.
just going to continue to lay there and rust.
GPS was invented during wartime
Right.
to locate people to kill them. Do you use GPS?
Yes.
Microwave oven.
Mhm.
The microwave technology, all this stuff was invented
Right.
to find people or to transmit information on where to find people to kill them.
Right.
I mean, all this stuff was invented during
Right.
wartime. Modern obstetrics and gynecology. Do you know where that information came from?
Aliens. No, I'm kidding.
Kind of. Nazi concentration camps, experimentation on the inmates, the people in the concentration camps, Dachau and Mengele and all that.
In that case, we should all
the
just
American doctors
swear off gynecology.
Yeah. Well, I haven't had much trouble with myself lately. But, but what I'm saying is the stuff that they learned, the dissection, the different stuff that they did, and they documented meticulously in these concentration camps. The American doctors jumped on this information because it was good information about the health stuff, even though it was obtained in a very, very bad way. I mean, a very, unethical way.
Right.
Now the information's out there, so we might as well use it to save some lives. So many things were invented during wartime, were checked out during wartime, and things like that. But then other uses were actually made eventually for them once the information was available and the invention was there. They found other ways to use it. So, trying to say, well, that's the only thing that can be used for, not necessarily.
Right.
There are other things. I know the heritage that people have. They go target shooting with their father. Nothing gets killed. It's the same as passing a football with your father or your mother, or throwing a baseball, or all this target shooting. It's the same thing. There's people that go through their entire lives owning guns. They shoot guns a lot, but they never kill a single thing in their entire lives.
Right.
Oh my gosh.
But
Who
it's
knew?
there if they need to defend.
Yes. In the case that if my wife had been in here, whenever
feel
that
sorry
guy
for the
broke
guy.
in, she very possibly, if he was being violent and breaking and doing all kinds of stuff, she very possibly would have had to have defended herself with deadly force with a handgun. Okay.
And she's very capable.
She is capable of that, but it would have bothered her psychologically later.
course.
But at the same time, she would not hesitate to protect if she had to. But she was in Florida with our mother, where she was starting her radiation treatments, and my wife was in Florida with her, and that's what saved that situation from happening. But whenever I came home, the guy was asleep. There was no reason to confront him, and the police, there was two things. I could get hurt. He could get hurt. He could get away. This guy is here, captive audience. Let the police arrest him in bed. What's wrong with that?
Right.
And a gun owner who's not
Right.
actually just automatically blazing bullets in all directions whenever something's wrong.
Right.
There are so many more of those than there are individuals who just illegally obtain a gun and go shoot somebody.
The example I like to use as far as, whether a gun is evil or not is money. Is there anybody who doesn't use money? I mean, it's something you pretty much in today's society have to exist. Okay? You have $1,000 in your wallet. You can use it to go buy a bunch of groceries and give it to the poor and do something really good with it. You can pay some of your bills with it. You can buy lumber to fix your house because somebody broke into it. Or you can hire a hitman.
Oh, yeah.
Money in and of itself is not good or bad. It's just a tool, just like a gun is. Or a hammer, or a baseball bat, or whatever else people want to use to kill people.
Oh, yeah. People brought up the baseball bat thing, too. I should have caught him in bed.
Yeah. Well,
But no.
Right.
No, I agree. There are so many things that... Okay, so what does that come down to?
It's the person that uses it.
The person who has it in their hand and what they decide to do.
That's exactly right. And
So
that's all it is. It's nothing
it is
more.
bad people doing things with neutral objects.
That's exactly right.
Very interesting. Okay, one other thing I wanted to ask you about. We'll shift subjects here. We were talking about, Jeff and I were talking about on the weekly catch-up here a few shows ago about the future of computing. And we had talked about how, desktop computers seem to be going out of vogue. Of course, you can see mine right now. My brother can see mine right now. I like my command center. I always have. You have a couple monitors and you got all this stuff and you can get in there and you can do stuff, Anyway, so I love that setup as far as having a desktop conglomeration. Anyway, a lot of people now are just having a cell phone. I know people who just have a cell phone. It's a computing device on its own. Everything's app driven. They do that. And one of the things I said on the show was that I thought that where things were going to go eventually was that we were going to have, back in the old days, they would have a central, in a building, they would have a central mainframe computer and then a bunch of what they used to call dumb terminals that would actually just access that computer. The actual computing happened on the big mainframe and you just gave commands from these terminals, but the actual work happened on that.
And it's still done some places.
Yeah, well, I know some places where you can do that type of thing, but online, what I predicted and thought would be happening, and it is happening already some, is that the actual computing power may reside on a mainframe, but it would be connected to whether it's cell phones or whether it's, there are some people who do their podcasting entirely on a cell phone. They have a microphone attached to it. They record their podcast. They upload their podcast from their cell phone. And then they can do things to it once it gets to where they upload it for distribution. And then it goes from there. So you could have, an individual file residing on a mainframe somewhere. I could access it. Doug could access it. Jeff in Australia could access it. Rick in California could access it. And then we could all make changes to it, and we're working on that singular document. The actual computing power is happening on the mainframe in that location. We are just accessing it, and even on an individual basis, you have an audio file or a video file that you want to upload, that you want to edit, instead of having to have the firepower on your desktop or on your, laptop or whatever you've got. The mainframe would be the one that does all the actual heavy lifting on the editing and that type of thing. And then you would just give commands from where you were at. And then whenever you were finished with it and got all the editing done, then it would be done. And you, Doug, came to me. Anyway, you come to me and you said, okay, I think there's somewhere else that this could be going to beyond that. And I will give him some street cred. He is actually an employee of a very large telecommunications concern. And so he hears things inside the industry that I'm not privy to. I wish you would talk a little bit more about what we were talking about. You said it's going to go even beyond what I was talking about. And, you could tell me about what you think computer is going to be like in the future.
Well, there is some truth to what you were saying about, it's not so much dumb terminal and mainframe relationship as it is, a lot of it's going to shared computing power to where, that's basically what the cloud is. It's, in your example of editing a video and uploading it, basically the cloud in that case is a storage device that everybody has access to.
Yeah, but at the same time, the actual power for the editing itself, you're just giving commands from your home or from your device. And the actual editing computer, like I want to process this audio, I want to compress it. So you have an hour's worth of audio and you're compressing it.
Right.
The actual compressing is happening on the site you uploaded it to, not the power that you have here, but on that.
So you're using their software to edit it. It's not in their software, app. You're not editing it first and then uploading it.
Right. You're uploading it. And I know sites that do the crunching on that end after you upload it. And so their computing power will be used.
So you're doing this through a website or?
Yeah. There are websites you can actually upload your audio to, and they do a complete processing of it and noise reduction, compression, all this stuff, and then prepare it for actual distribution using their resources. But you're talking about sharing the resource of the main thing, taking some power from me, taking some power from Jeff, from you, from Rick, and all of us together. It depends on what it needs. If I'm not doing much right now, then it may take some power from me to do that. Right.
And in actuality, that's what a web browser is. It's technically doing some of the computing power, because it's not dumb terminals were just text. I mean, it was just basically ASCII
commands.
going back and forth.
Yeah, it's just commands that
Right.
you were telling it, do this.
But even then, it was just ASCII. Like, it would come to you. Everything it would want to tell you would be in ASCII. And then everything you would put in, it might be a command, but it would still just be ASCII.
Okay.
A string of ASCII characters.
ASCII, all symbolic computer instructional, I can't remember what it stands for.
Wow, I don't even know what it stands for.
Yeah.
I know what some of the numbers mean and what characters they are just from my computing days. But anyway, so still the dumb terminal is you're just entering a string of characters. And then when it gets sent back to the mainframe, that's when the command actually, it takes those ASCII characters and converts it into a command. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah. And then,
so that's why they call them a dumb terminal.
And then the command itself is executed in the mainframe, and the little computer itself, the little dumb terminal, doesn't have any power other than communication to the thing.
Right.
Okay.
So what we have with web browsing is the browser is interpreting a bunch of gibberish basically and turning it into something that's useful on your end. So the information is stored on that side, and you're right. Some of the computing power is over there. It's not just storage. I mean, because the computing power, you click on something on a website, and that sends the information on what you clicked on, but then it has to determine what it needs to go get. So it's making computing decisions, as well as when it sends the information back, your computer or device, whatever you're using, is also making computing decisions on its own on how I'm going to display this based on what I'm seeing.
Okay.
Yeah. So that's what browsers do. I mean, that's an example of somewhat shared computing, but there's even some applications that, and I've been racking my brain trying to think of a good example, but I'm pretty sure it's used in like large engineering type firms where it'll have like,
you mean a CAD?
CAD type stuff, real math heavy stuff. Well, they will actually take part of a problem and have this computer doing this part of it.
Oh, wow.
And then they'll have another computer somewhere else working on this part of it.
Okay.
I mean, the computer's actually sitting there doing a bunch of calculating. They'll have 2 or 3 computers, or however many they need, working on different aspects of the same thing.
Okay. So for instance, my computer has X number of cores in it.
Right.
Now, are those cores just multiplying the signal to where you can get this many calculations done at a time, or could they be doing different things? And this would be maybe a translation of that to the macro, to where you've got really, really big, several computers, actually each one its own little thing doing, like you say, part of the problem.
Right.
And then it all gets combined at the end.
I think inside of one computer, like the cores, and I may be wrong on this because I haven't kept up with a lot of that stuff, but I've always interpreted the cores as being like separate processes within a computer, so that you can execute, like if you got 4 cores, you can actually execute 4 machine language
things at a time,
right, at the exact same time slot.
Okay, whereas you had to send them sequentially if you only had one path.
Right.
You've got 4 paths and you're sending 4 at a time.
Right, so machine language is nothing but numbers, and it feeds them in one at a time because they're commands, and then
so that quadruples the speed immediately if you have 4 paths for this stuff to go down to.
Right. Well, and I guess that's the theory behind it. Again, I haven't kept up with that side of what the capabilities are and all that. I think that's what that means. I could be wrong. But, here we're talking about, computers sharing, the actual computing power around the world even,
Well, like you say, Jeff's in Australia. Our friend Rick is in California. You're here close to me. All 4 of us could work on something, and really, we're so connected now.
Well, when you do your Jeff and Jeffrey show, part of that computing power is here.
Yes. Yeah.
Part of it's there. I mean, you've got your own video camera. Your computer is translating that into what it needs to do to send it to him, so that he can feed it right back onto the, and he's got his own video cameras.
Yeah. Then it goes to him.
It's not sending the raw video signal straight to him over the internet. It's doing stuff here, getting it ready to send to him and sending it to,
Yeah. And then it sends it to him. And then he has specific software where he does camera switching and stuff like that on that end. And then he has the capability of recording it locally. And he could do that, and also at exactly the same time, what he's really doing, though, not recording it, he's sending it, streaming it live to YouTube. So their computers, Google's computers, are doing stuff with it, but he is conditioning what I'm sending him and conditioning his putting backgrounds, doing, again, camera switching to different scenes. We can actually project pictures on the screen and stuff like that through his software. His software, I can project a picture on the screen from this end using Skype. And it only shows up on my half of the screen because of what his computer does with it. He's still on there, and then I can make my screen do it. And then, so I've got the picture. Then his computer doesn't do the whole screen, but puts it on his side of the screen, on my side because of what I did on this end. And then he conditions it and sends it live to YouTube in the form of the show. And so, and then I'm doing a completely separate operation, a separate audio recording on this end by plugging in a digital device that we're using right now to record this. And you were commenting about 3 different cords coming out of my microphone. Yeah. One of them's plugged into the computer and the other 2 are plugged into the recording device. And so we're doing multiple things all here at the same time. And yeah, it gets mind boggling, I guess, after a while, but it sure is fun trying to understand it if you're a geek.
Oh yeah. And we are, at least I am.
We are. Yeah. Well, no, I have absolutely no trouble admitting I'm a geek. No trouble at all. So do you have any wild predictions or any speculations on, the next century of computing? What do you think the wildest thing that is going to come up, say, in the next 20 years? Because everything's just accelerating.
Oh, that's hard to predict. I mean, I don't know. I'm really starting to get concerned about, everybody talks about AI and, I'm just, it wouldn't surprise me if the internet doesn't become self-aware,
Aware.
I mean, Skynet and all that.
Right, exactly, yeah.
But,
it
because
depends on how much you trust the technology, and again, we were talking about that with the cameras.
That goes into security.
With the cameras, yeah.
Right, it all ties in.
At your house. Yeah, you have cameras on the outside, but you don't have cameras on the inside because you trust it only to a certain point.
Right. I was reading an article today. Can we mention websites on here?
Oh, yeah, totally.
Kim Commando.
Okay.
If you're familiar with her.
I have heard.
She has a radio show and all that. She, it's all technology stuff.
So is that Kim? No, it's fine. No, is that KimCommando.com, I'm guessing.
Right. I think it's just commando.com. But anyway, I get emails from her and I'll scan the article, just like the headlines and stuff. Sure. And one caught my eye today and I read it and it was talking basically about internet security and all that. And I mean, there's just, everything's being connected to the internet now. Stuff that, in my opinion, does not even need to be connected.
Our time clocks at the Postal Service are connected to the internet.
It's called the Internet of Things.
Yeah.
Okay. And it's everything. I mean, they've got coffee makers, refrigerators. Why? Well, I don't care what the benefit is.
How else are you going to know that you ran out of milk if they don't send it over the internet to your cell phone?
Now,
how are you going to know?
That's exactly right. Exactly. So let me run a scenario past you. You've got a refrigerator that has the TV screen on it now where you can see what's in the refrigerator without opening the door to save electricity, right?
Yeah.
So that means it's got a camera inside.
Okay. I wonder how much the light bulb compared to the camera and the television screen and all that. Okay. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Yeah. I mean, there's all that
sure
stuff.
Is green,
there's all that
though.
to consider too. Yeah.
Sure is green though.
Right. So you've got that refrigerator that has the camera in it.
Mm-hmm.
And it's connected to the internet for whatever reason they can think of. Okay. And when you open the door, where's that camera pointing? If the camera, I'm assuming the camera's on the door somewhere so you can see everything that's in the refrigerator. I don't know how it exactly works. I don't have one and I probably never will.
What I have seen is they're actually in the door pointing your view of the refrigerator. So
right.
You know what's going on.
It looks like the door's open, but it's not right.
Right.
So my guess is when you open the door, it's pointing into your house.
Sure.
Okay. That's something. I don't know if people think about this kind of stuff.
I think older generations do, but I don't think the younger folks do.
Now they may claim to have a security feature in it that the camera's disabled when the door's open.
Sounds great.
You remember back in the Commodore 64 days, the guy that talking about this program he wrote, and he even disabled the light on the floppy drive because he didn't want to waste that 0.00014 watts or whatever it was of electricity to power that little LED to let you know that the drive was running. So he disabled that. He disabled something hardware related.
Oh, totally.
You remember that?
Yes.
Through software.
No, when I had a bulletin board system back before the internet was available, it was just a computer sitting there accepting phone calls. People were hooking up their computers. They were trading programs. They were, trading messages, stuff like that. I had a software program on an 8088 original old-timey IBM computer that would do an actual hardware restart.
Right.
It turned it off and back on.
That's exactly right.
That shocked me back then that you could actually do, because you could do a soft reboot, but I'm talking about a complete restart of the computer.
Yes.
And this was in the 80s. And
Right.
that shocked me that you could do control hardware. Once you turn it off, you would think that would be the end of that it can't keep doing it.
Mm-hmm.
Something's on
That's right.
to tell it to come back
That's
on.
right. Well, some of the old school viruses that used to be written back in the modem days
Yes.
would lay dormant. And if people left their computers on, it would wake up the modem while at the least likely time anything was happening. Some of them even monitored activity on the computer. And if it saw several hours where there was no activity, it would come alive, enable the modem, dial out, and start sending information to whoever wrote the virus.
Right.
I mean, that's the way they were set up. And I worry about some of these computers today that have soft power keys. It's like it's not a physical switch where you actually break the physical connection.
Right.
button, you push it, it doesn't stick out when it's off and in when it's, it's not a physical connection. It's just something you hit, and it's just a momentary switch that tells it on and off. Why couldn't you control that with software? Even when it's off, something would power it on.
I was showing him my camera on my computer, the one I used for the show. It has a little indicator, blue light around the edges of it that tells you whenever the thing's on. Jeff was telling me on one of the shows one time that he saw somebody who was doing an interview with the head of the CIA at the time. And he turned around and looked, and he had a piece of electrical tape over the camera on his computer, the director of the CIA, because someone outside can turn your camera on and look at you and even disable the lights that indicate that it's on, and you would never know. And so even the head of the CIA specifically had tape over the camera to make sure nobody.
Right.
Anyway, I have a file card over mine.
And that's
just
the kind
for
of
that
stuff
exact reason.
Yeah, that's the kind of stuff I think of.
Mm-hmm.
And I've got several cameras that are built into things that I never use, and I just put electrical tape on them.
Yeah, you don't have to worry about that.
But I just, all this stuff is connected to the internet. It's called the Internet of Things, and they're trying to connect more and more stuff to it. All this talk about hacking the election and all this stuff.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I don't want to get into politics, but I don't personally believe it's possible to hack the election. Okay, because it's not connected to the internet.
From what I was getting, what they were doing was they thought they were exercising undue influence by erroneous information and things like that, just sending out information. Well, both campaigns did that.
It is not.
It's erroneous information.
Right.
They didn't.
That's campaigning.
I mean, I asked them about that over here on the machines, the voting machines. They are not connected.
They are not.
It is completely isolated.
That's
Each
exactly
machine is.
right.
And so hacking the election.
They cannot change a vote. It's certified by the secretaries of state.
Right.
In each respective state, they certify it after counting them.
Right.
And nothing is connected to the internet in that regard.
Right.
So they cannot do anything to change a vote.
Right.
So hacking the election is a term that a certain side of the political spectrum wants you to believe.
Right. It's scary.
And it's debatable that they even had anything to do with the Podesta emails, because from what I understand, that was actually where he was, what they call it when they send you an email, phishing.
Yeah.
And he clicked on something on an email, and he basically gave it away.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, oops.
And so anyway, I don't want to get into all that. But the only sure way to have security on the internet is to not be connected to it. Period.
Wow. Yeah, and the thing is,
I mean, that's anything man can devise to protect you can be defeated by man.
Right.
Anything.
Well, it usually has been by the time it comes
That's
out.
exactly right.
Well,
why do you think you're constantly having to upgrade? And every time you look at your phone, it's updating stuff automatically.
Well, I mean, mine keeps telling me who's nearby. And who,
right.
I mean, I can go for a whole list. 3 hours ago, so-and-so was nearby. One of your contacts was nearby. Okay. Friend of mine at work, Jake Lanham, it keeps telling me he's nearby. I was talking to him. He did a search on Skyrim on Google. On the first page for him was the Jeff and Jeffrey, the weekly catch-up episode that had as one of the things listed Skyrim, this and this as topics. That's not on the first page for everyone.
Right.
That is just on the first page for him because it knows that he's my friend and that we are connected online. And so it gave a customized first page for him. And he was just ecstatic and thrilled because, look, it's my friend. He's on the first page, And I said, well, is that cool or what? And then I got to thinking about it. Okay, somebody who doesn't know me, this is not going to be on their first page.
Right.
Because they know of our connection. It is known. And so,
Right.
And
it will always be known from now on.
From now on, it is known.
And that's where...
Even if we didn't like each other after a while or, something like that, they would still know that we were. But then later they may detect that we had murderous intent on each other or something,
Right.
they may detect that. But as it stands, we have friendly relations and it's known around the world. So...
Right. And that's where, again, the internet, especially the Internet of Things, that I mean, we're talking billions. It's already in the billions of devices. And they're predicting, and this is some of the stuff that I've actually learned through my work. They're predicting for 60-some billion, I forget the exact number, it's way up there, devices that are going to be connected to the internet. And it's like,
wow.
Does it need to be? I mean, we're talking Skynet here.
Well, no, the thing is...
I mean, the potential is there. I'm not saying I believe that's going to happen.
Never underestimate the excitability of cool.
Oh, yeah.
People really want to be
always, cool. To have a convenience of some sort, you typically always give up something else.
You give up something. Mm-hmm. Yes.
And I don't know why that is. It's a principle.
Yeah, reciprocation.
Right. I mean, it is a principle that is always held to be true. So with he's making fun of my lack of microphone prowess.
Actually not. He hit the microphone cord, and so and he was kind of like, but this is definitely laid back. So I went ahead and hit mine 3 or 4 times. Just do that. Another thing is we're used to recording studio work. We're used to being in a studio,
right.
And actually you don't breathe when you're in there. You
right.
sing, you play your instrument, and it's just very silent. This is much more laid back. It's taken me a few years, but I finally learned how to be a little more laid back about it. Furnace came on a second ago, and you can't hear it when I'm doing the show over here, but I can hear it through his microphone. Right. And so I'm sitting there going, uh-oh. But I'll work on it. I'm not really worried about it.
Going back to the Kim Commando thing, the article I was reading was about all these devices and stuff. Are, more than 50% of them have a lot of vulnerabilities. And there's and she mentioned specifically Russian websites specifically that have nothing but streams that you can just go watch of people's babies sleeping because they've got their baby monitors. Somebody over in Russia watching that, I mean, it's not, they're not going to say, hey, I'm going to travel the world and kidnap that baby. I mean, it's possible.
It's just the thrill of something forbidden.
But people that have security cameras in their homes, whether it's in their bedrooms, I mean, think about the implications there.
Yeah.
I mean, smart TVs have cameras built into them now.
Right.
Microphones built into them.
Right.
So, I mean, and all this stuff can just be hacked into, and I don't care what they do to upgrade the security or whatever, any kind of firewall. If the security is devised by man, it can be defeated by man. That's just a principle that I've always believed and have held to, because I understand. I have, my electronics background and my computer background. I just know how a lot of this stuff works. As far as the fundamental parts, I may not be able to explain down to the very little minute detail, but I understand it enough to know that there is nothing that's totally secure, period. And that's why I do not understand why the government, for example, wants to be all interconnected with everybody else all the time. I mean, that just opens themselves up.
Well, the government themselves have always believed themselves.
Well, the government invented the internet.
Charge.
It wasn't Al Gore. Sorry to tell you.
Yeah, well.
But it was done by government scientists back in, the 50s? Or...
Oh, yeah, it was a long time ago. But it was something that was really not meant to be for the average person.
Right.
Back in the 80s, I had a friend tell me one time that anybody who didn't want to take time to learn how to program a computer did not deserve to use one. Because we were all the
right.
geeks and we were programming, we were writing our own programs and things were happening. And he kind of was getting on me a little bit for running around and putting menu systems on computers that just came up C, little C, and nobody knew what to do with it. And I'd make them a menu. Right. And I did that for a lot of my friends because all they knew was if you got a computer, your kids would be smart
Right.
Okay. And if you got a computer, if you had a business, you need to get a computer. Other than that, they had no concept of what to use them for. So I was giving them menu systems, things like that, just helping people. And so I said, so nobody really should be able to use a computer unless they're a programmer. And he said, that's correct. I said, can you explain the workings of an internal combustion engine? And he said, no. And I said, well, you don't deserve to drive. And it's kind of like,
You need to take a pair of scissors and go out and cut your grass.
yeah, that'd be a lot better. Go give me show down this little push mower. I mean, no more of that. Do a little scissors thing. No, I see that. I mean, it's all like you say, that the level that's happened just in years in my lifetime. I mean, just the change, because whenever we were kids, encyclopedias. I mean, if you needed to know something,
it was an actual physical book.
So what happened if we needed information? We went to the encyclopedia, the dictionary, your parents, your pastor, your teacher,
the library,
places where this stuff was stored.
Do they even have a Dewey Decimal System anymore?
I think they still do, but nobody knows what it is.
There's still libraries.
Yeah, there are still libraries. But the thing is, though, I think it's contributing to a bit of a familial breakdown, simply because if you need information, the internet has more information than what your parents do. And so you are automatically smarter than your parents at a very, very early age, if that's the way you choose to look at it.
Or you just learn because that's what your parents do. When you ask them a question, they get on the internet and look it up.
Yeah, but the interaction between the parents and the kids is dwindling simply because you don't need to ask your father or your mother or whatever anymore, because you just pull out your phone and do it. A friend of mine was a college professor. He even taught for a while over in China. And one time somebody said, hey, what about such and such? And he started to tell them what it was based on his learning and knowledge that he had gone up, and he's in his upper 50s. And one of the kids whipped out a phone and just started reeling off the information. And he looked at me and he said this loud enough. I mean, it was kind of a joke around. He goes, it's really sad. I spent years learning that information. And I said, well, there's one big difference. They have access to information. You know it.
Right.
It's kind of like, he goes, I feel better.
Yeah.
Because, you have access to all this stuff. You don't really need to know anything you've got on your hand. But, I'm sorry, I don't have a signal, so I can't really get any information, and I know nothing.
Mm-hmm. Right. And if the internet goes down.
It's done.
I mean, there's going to be people that don't have a clue how to live life. I mean, literally. I mean,
well, the more you depend on technology, the more you are completely dependent on it.
It becomes your brain.
Yeah, it becomes your brain.
Who memorizes phone numbers anymore?
So you're just basically brain dead.
Who memorizes phone numbers anymore?
If it goes down, you're brain dead.
Right.
You don't know how to obtain food. You don't know how to grow food. You don't know how to shoot and clean an animal and have meat.
Right.
Because unlike some people think, meat does come from animals. Mm-hmm. It's not just at the store or spontaneously. It does come from animals. And so if everything were, large terrorist attack, the grid goes down, whatever. Actually, it was proven that the United States actually did a cyber attack on Iran at one point and actually forced a bunch of their nuclear cyclotron things to go too fast and burn up. and so these things can happen in water plants and power plants and things like that. If those things are connected to the internet, monitoring purposes, which they are, you could actually make those things malfunction. I don't mean a nuclear blast. I mean, a meltdown or something, but I mean something as simple as making the water go away. We had a crisis here. It's been a couple, 3 years ago now. We had a big crisis and water was down for weeks. I mean, it was just this longest period of time. And that can happen. Everybody believes everything will be just fine.
Right.
But, and again, I'm going to talk about being wild-eyed preppers, but having some basic knowledge that you have either in your mind or in, oh my goodness, hardback or paperback books.
Right.
Wouldn't that be nice? How to do these things. That knowledge is being lost.
It is.
We were trained and taught about some of these things. I know how to make slingshots, bows and arrows, things like that. We were living out in the country and we were trained to do those things. Anybody younger than us not many people know these things. And so the population, a large part of it, could starve in a very short period of time once everything runs out in the stores.
Mm-hmm.
You
There'll
know,
be
but
riots and everybody coming to get the food from the people that do know how to do that stuff.
right. And, you know, okay, again, this is probably considered political, but the main divisions in the country are not conservative and liberal. They are city and country side.
Mm-hmm.
What it comes down to is people in the countryside want to be self-sufficient. They want to do things for themselves. They want to be
That's
left
a general
alone.
rule.
Okay, they believe that's freedom to be left alone. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And again, yes, stereotypically. In the city, they are used to fee for service.
Mm-hmm.
I pay you, you take care of me.
Right.
Someone comes and does your plumbing for you, you pay them for it. You pay fees, your trash is picked up, all the city services are given to you, public transportation, all that stuff. You pay for it, and it appears. In an environment where everything just breaks down, and again, we're not, you know, these things can't happen because it did happen here recently with the water system. If you're used to, the first thing you want to do is pay somebody to solve your problem. Well, there's no one to pay. Money means nothing.
Mm-hmm.
So the people who can manufacture a life from raw materials are going to be the only people.
We're talking about going back to bartering.
Yeah, exactly. And so money means nothing now. So
Right.
if you have done nothing or know nothing other than paying money to get what you want, and you've never done anything for yourself, that's a very scary world to be in.
And think about this. You know, that's one of the times when having friends is a good thing. I mean, people
Sure.
that you know you can rely on. Next time you go in a restaurant to eat, look around. How many people are actually talking to their own family members? And how many of them are on cell phones? I mean, how are they building relationships? People's grammar is suffering. I mean, because they talk like they type.
Oh no!
I mean, you know what I mean?
Yeah, I totally know.
I mean,
So you get one with all
it's
kinds
crazy.
of
It's
shortcuts
like,
and stuff.
You know,
Well, did you realize if the internet goes down and your cell phone is not available to actually communicate, do you realize you have no friends except what's on your phone?
right.
That's all the friends you have.
And that's another one of my concerns with where telecom is going. I mean, the industry is moving toward IP based
Mm-hmm.
to where there's not going to be as much hardware, even in the phone buildings. I mean, there's going to be some because it has to come into the phone buildings and then be hardware based. But I mean, people don't have landlines as much anymore. I mean, if the internet goes down, no one has communication except for the people that have phone lines, and even some of them won't. I mean, we're talking about in-home hardwired old school phone service. And some of them won't be able to communicate because a large portion of the telecom network is moving toward IP based transference. So we're talking. That's why I don't understand why everybody wants, and I'm a technology guy, you know that.
Oh, totally.
But I don't understand this big rush to put everything into all eggs into one basket.
Mm-hmm.
To where, I mean, we're talking every technology industry is moving that way. I mean,
Right.
Television will be over the internet. You know, it already is, and people are ditching the cable companies and going with, you know, Netflix and stuff like that. Some people don't even have cable service.
Now we're back to security.
It's all intertwined.
All the eggs in one basket, because what happens is they are making safeguards, hopefully redundancy to keep the internet up, but not beyond that.
Right.
Because then all you have to do is blow up a couple of places, or a natural disaster come through and wipe out a few things. And then the internet goes down no matter what you did, or the power grid
Right.
goes down no matter what you did. And no one is thinking beyond keeping the internet up or keeping the power up. Never, what kind
Right.
of, there's no, and to me, the reason why preppers exist is because they recognize the possibility. And again, being prepared and being the ultimate prepper are two completely different things.
Right.
But the idea of what would you do if all this was gone today? When the power goes off, people are completely, they don't know, they don't have books in their house they can read by a candle. They don't have.
Right.
And so anything, what about clean water? What about, you can get water out of the river and distill it or do something. Nobody has any, not only do they not have these objects or these things they could convert to start getting that up and running, they have no concept of how you would even make something because they don't have the knowledge or the skills, like you're saying.
Well, there's no source to go to now.
Right.
Because
it's
they
all on
always
your
went
phone.
to the internet.
It was, yes. And that was all there was.
Right.
And so, any sudden shift.
You know what's sad about this too is in schools nowadays, I feel like kids aren't taught critical thinking either.
Oh, exactly.
Okay.
It's a recitation.
Right. I mean, it's kind of more along the lines of indoctrination in a lot of cases. Einstein, I believe it was Einstein. I don't want to get this too wrong, but it'd probably be. But anyway, the gist of this was Einstein had somebody tried to prove that he was an idiot. Okay. And they asked him some question that everybody should know. I forget what it was. I mean, for us, it would be like an example of what's the significance of the year 1776. Okay. I mean, any American should know that. Okay. So, I mean, I don't think that was a question, but I'm just giving an example. And he had no clue. And the guy said, "See, you're an idiot." And he looked at me and said, "Why should I use my brain as a warehouse of facts that I can find in any encyclopedia? I'd rather use my mind to think."
Mm.
Okay. And if you have a generation that's fully relying on the internet, I mean, pretty much, which is what we seem to be raising, and they're not learning anything for themselves, any life skills and all this. They just rely on that. I mean,
zero analysis.
Right. And they're not learning critical thinking skills. I mean, it's critical thinking skills that bring us to this conversation.
Right.
Okay. Just thinking about the possibilities of what can happen. And this goes into security too, because there's times I'll be sitting somewhere, just waiting at a stoplight, as an example. I'm just throwing it out. I mean, this doesn't happen to me all the time. I don't want everybody to think I'm paranoid. But if I see somebody that looks a little bit suspicious or whatever, just acting funny or whatever, I start going through scenarios in my mind. Especially if my wife and daughter's in the car. I mean, I'm like, okay, if he comes over this way and reaches for this door, this is what I'm going to do. If he comes over and tries to break a window, I'm going to do this. I just start going through all these different scenarios in my mind of what steps can I take if this happens, if this happens, and it's just a security mindset of,
Okay.
and again, it's not paranoia. It's just being ready and critical thinking on,
Okay. So what was going on during that period of time? You were sitting at a stoplight waiting for it to change so you could drive forward. So you didn't waste any time doing that. If anything, it gave you some mental exercise for whatever was going on. No one looks ahead. No one even looks down anymore while they're walking to see if they're about to trip over something.
Oh, they're looking at their phone.
I think, if evolution was really a thing, I think in a few generations, everybody's going to have T-Rex arms and they're going to be bent over looking at you. That's the way everybody's going to be, because their phones would be right there. Right. But anyway, on that thought, I think we're just about done with the show.
We could go on forever, couldn't we?
Oh, totally. I told you we could. That's the way it goes. Well, we'll definitely have to do it again. But thank you very much. I really appreciate it.
Enjoy.
And everybody, if you'd like to see him come back as a guest co-host at some point or another, even if you don't, let us know.
That'll probably be more likely.
But anyway, Doug, thank you ever so much, and we will talk to you later on.
Thank you.
Thanks for listening. Please go to holbrooknewmedia.com or leave us an email at theweeklycatchup@gmail.com.